It was just another quiet evening in the city, the kind where people came to the small cafe on the corner to drink tea, laugh with friends, and forget the noise of life. The place smelled of coffee and fresh bread, warm and peaceful. No one could have imagined that within minutes that peace would shatter like glass. The door slammed open, and a group of police officers rushed in. Their boots hit the floor hard, their eyes sharp and serious. The customers froze, cups halfway to their lips. The officers didn't explain. They didn't ask questions. They went straight for a man sitting quietly by the window. He was in his mid-30s, dressed in simple clothes, his hands wrapped around a cup of tea. He looked up in confusion as one of the officers shouted, "You're under arrest." The man blinked, his voice calm but puzzled. "There must be some mistake," he said softly. But before he could say another word, his arms were twisted behind his back, and cold metal cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. The cafe owner protested, "Officer, he's a regular here. He didn't do anything." But the police didn't listen. They were sure they had caught the right man. The crowd started whispering. Someone said he might be a thief. Another suggested maybe he was a wanted spy. The man didn't fight, didn't shout, didn't even look scared. He just stood there quietly, as if he already knew this was going to happen. His calmness made the officers even angrier. "You think this is a joke?" one officer barked, pushing him toward the door. The man didn't reply. Outside, flashing lights from police cars painted the street red and blue. Reporters weren't there yet, but people on the street pulled out their phones to record. The man's head was slightly bowed, his face unreadable. The only thing he said before entering the van was, "I hope you know what you're doing." Inside, the air was cold and tense. One of the officers whispered, "He doesn't look like the guy from the photo." Another replied, "Orders are orders. We bring him in first, ask later." The man just listened silently, staring out the small window as the city lights blurred past. At the station, he was led to an interrogation room. A single flickering light hung from the ceiling. The officers asked for his name, but he didn't answer. He just looked at them, calm and distant. Finally, one of them lost patience and slammed his fist on the table. "Why aren't you talking?" The man sighed and said quietly, "Because you're asking the wrong questions." The chief entered, an older man with sharp eyes. He looked at the prisoner and frowned. "What's your business here?" The man didn't move, didn't flinch, just met the chief's stare. There was something strange about his eyes. They were calm but deep, like he had seen far too much. "You'll understand soon," he said simply. The chief didn't like that answer. "We'll see about that," he muttered before leaving. Hours passed. The man sat there motionless. His simple clothes made him look poor. His ID was missing, and he carried only a small notebook and a silver keycard with a strange design. The officers searched it, but couldn't identify where it came from. The younger officer whispered, "Sir, maybe we got the wrong guy." The chief growled, "Impossible." The report was clear. "He's connected to the smuggling case." Meanwhile, the man listened to their words through the thin walls. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He had known something like this might happen, yet he made no effort to defend himself. Back in the cafe, people were still talking about the arrest. The owner couldn't stop thinking about the man's calm expression. "He didn't even look scared," she told her husband. It was like he knew this was part of something bigger. And she was right. At the station, the night dragged on. The officers grew restless. They tried running his fingerprints, but the database showed nothing. No record, no name, no address. It was as if the man didn't exist. The chief stared at the blank screen, his jaw tightening. "That's not possible," he said under his breath. "Everyone leaves a trace." But this man hadn't. When they decided to question him again, they found him sitting with his eyes closed, as if meditating. "Who are you really?" one officer asked. The man opened his eyes slowly and smiled faintly. "You'll know soon," he said. The chief slammed the table. "Enough games. You think you can hide behind silence?" The man looked at him steadily and said, "I'm not hiding. I'm waiting for you to find out." His voice was soft, but something about it made even the toughest officer pause. By midnight, the chief gave an order to keep him locked until morning. Maybe then they could dig up something useful. But deep down he had a strange feeling like they had just made a terrible mistake. The man sat quietly in his cold cell, his hands resting on his knees. The light above flickered again. He whispered to himself, "They'll come soon," and then closed his eyes. The guards looked at each other, uneasy. None of them could explain why, but they all felt it too. This man was not what he seemed, and before dawn something would happen that none of them could ever forget. The night felt longer than usual inside the police station. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of stale coffee and fear. Every officer tried to focus on paperwork, but their minds kept returning to the silent man in cell 3. He hadn't shouted, hadn't begged, hadn't even asked for food. He just sat there, hands folded, eyes calm, as if he was waiting for something none of them could see. One of the younger officers, Daniel, couldn't take it anymore. He walked over to the chief's office. "Sir," he said softly, "something's not right about that man. He doesn't look scared. He looks like he's testing us." The chief sighed, tired from too many long nights. "Then test him back," he said. "Run his prints again, check the global database this time. Maybe he's one of those off-the-grid mercenaries." Daniel nodded and returned to the lab. He scanned the man's fingerprints again, watched the screen blink, then freeze. "No match," it said again. "Not in the national system, not in Interpol, not anywhere." Daniel frowned. "That's impossible," he whispered. He checked the machine, tried again, same result. It was as if the man had no past, no existence. In the cell, the man opened his eyes slowly, as if he could sense what was happening. The guard on duty, Officer Riley, watched him nervously. "You know, they think you're some kind of ghost," Riley said, trying to sound brave. The man smiled faintly. "Maybe I am," he replied, "or maybe they're just looking in the wrong places." At 2 a.m., the chief decided to question him again. The interrogation room was dim, the single bulb buzzing weakly. The man sat calmly as the chief entered. "I don't know who you think you are," the chief said, "but you're making things worse for yourself. Just tell us your name." The man tilted his head slightly. "My name would only raise more questions," he said quietly. The chief slammed his hand on the table. "Enough riddles. We found this on you," he said, holding up a strange silver keycard. "What is this? Some kind of weapon?" The man looked at it for a moment, his expression unreadable. "A key," he said finally, "but not for any door, you know." The chief glared. "Then what does it open?" The man met his eyes and whispered, "The truth." The chief froze. Something about those words sent a chill through him. He turned to leave but paused at the door. "You're hiding something," he said. The man replied softly, "So are you." That sentence hit the chief harder than he expected. How could this stranger know? He tried to brush it off, but the man's tone was too calm, too certain. As the chief walked out, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed on the screen. "Release him immediately. He is not your concern." The chief's blood ran cold. He looked around. No one else had seen it. He deleted the message, trying to shake the unease crawling up his spine. Back in the cell block, Officer Daniel whispered to another guard, "He's not like any suspect we've ever had. His pulse is steady even under pressure. And get this, his eyes? I swear they reflect light like a cat's." The other guard laughed nervously. "Man, you're watching too many movies." But when he glanced toward the cell, his laughter died. The man was standing near the bars watching them, silent and still. By morning, strange things began to happen. The station's security cameras glitched, screens flickering between static and darkness. The computer that stored his file suddenly shut down. Every attempt to reboot it failed. The technician said it was impossible. Everything else worked fine except the system linked to the man's case. The chief tried to stay calm. "It's just a coincidence," he told himself. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Nothing about this was normal. He ordered 2 officers to keep watch over the cell, but when they checked the footage later, they noticed something strange. At times, the man wasn't visible on the screen. He was there in person, but the camera didn't record him. At sunrise, a black car pulled up outside the station, sleek and silent. 2 men in dark suits stepped out carrying briefcases. They didn't introduce themselves, just flashed badges that the chief had never seen before. "We're here for the man you arrested last night," one of them said. The chief frowned. "Who are you people?" The man in the suit smiled coldly. "Let's just say we're above your pay grade." The chief hesitated. "I want to know who he is first." The other agent leaned closer and whispered, "You really don't." The tension in the air was heavy. The officers gathered near the hallway, whispering among themselves. Daniel asked, "Sir, are we really giving him away? We don't even know what's going on." The chief stared at the floor, then finally nodded. "We have no choice." Before they could unlock the cell, the man stood up. "They're here," he said calmly. "I told you this would happen." The door opened, and the agents gestured for him to step out. He nodded politely and walked with them as if he had expected them all along. The chief called out, "Wait, what's your name?" The man paused, turned his head slightly and said, "Names don't matter, only actions do." Then he disappeared through the station doors with the agents, leaving behind only silence. The chief stood frozen, unsure what he had just witnessed. He didn't know it yet, but by the end of that day, his entire station, and his understanding of who truly holds power, would change forever. Morning sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds of the police station, but it brought no warmth, only a lingering tension. The strange events of the night before still haunted everyone. The cell where the man had sat now looked eerily empty, as if he'd never been there at all. Yet his calm voice, his mysterious smile, and the men in black suits were seared into every officer's mind. Chief Warren hadn't slept. He sat in his office, eyes red, replaying everything in his head. Something about that man felt beyond human. His silence, his control, the way technology seemed to glitch around him. It wasn't just fear the chief felt. It was a deep, heavy guilt. Maybe he had arrested someone who should never have been touched. Suddenly the phone on his desk rang, its sharp sound cutting through the silence. The voice on the other end was official, cold. "This is Director Cole from the National Intelligence Bureau. We understand you detained one of our field assets last night." The chief froze. "Field asset?" he repeated slowly. The director continued, his tone sharp. "Yes, codename Erebus. He's part of an undercover operation far above your clearance level. You were never supposed to encounter him." The chief's mouth went dry. "Sir, he didn't show up in any database, and his ID—" "Of course it didn't," the director interrupted. "People like him don't exist on paper." After a tense pause, he added, "But if you value your career, you'll forget everything you saw. Erase every trace of his arrest, every file, every record." The line went dead. The chief sat still, his hands shaking slightly. He turned to his deputy. "Get me the case files, everything from last night." When the deputy returned, his face was pale. "Sir, there's nothing," he whispered. "All the data is gone, the footage, the reports. It all just vanished from the system." "Vanished?" the chief repeated, stunned. "Yes, sir," the deputy replied. "Even the CCTV backups are corrupted. It's like he never existed." Outside, officers were gathered, talking in hushed tones. "I swear the cameras glitched when he looked at them," Daniel said. Riley added, "When I passed his cell, I felt watched, even though he wasn't moving." The chief snapped, "Enough! You'll all forget what happened. That's an order." But his own voice trembled. An hour later, a black SUV pulled up again. 2 senior officials from the government entered the station and handed the chief a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an official insignia and one short line. "Erebus' mission remains classified. You will cooperate and remain silent." The chief looked up, bewildered. Who is he really? The agent sighed. All you need to know is that the man you arrested last night has saved this country more times than you can count. He operates where the law doesn't reach." The chief's mind raced. Then why was he here? The agent replied, "He was hunting something or someone. Your arrest ruined his cover." Just then the chief's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered cautiously. A distorted voice spoke, "Tell your men to stay inside and lock the gates. You've been followed." The call ended before he could respond. Seconds later, the station lights flickered. Then the screech of tires echoed from outside. Officers rushed to the windows. 3 black vehicles had surrounded the building, and armed, masked men were stepping out. The chief's heart pounded. "Everyone down!" he shouted. "They're coming for him or for us!" Gunfire erupted. The officers ducked behind desks, trying to return fire. This wasn't a random attack. It was connected to the man they had captured. Suddenly, through the chaos, a calm, steady voice came over the police radio. "Chief Warren, this is Erebus. Stay low and do not open fire. They're not here for you." The chief froze, recognizing that tone. "But how are you on this channel?" he stammered. The voice replied, "You didn't think I left without finishing my mission, did you?" Outside, a single figure moved through the gunmen with impossible precision. Fast, silent, controlled. Within minutes, the attackers were on the ground. As suddenly as it began, the shooting stopped. The radio crackled again. "You and your men are safe now. Forget this night. Forget me." When the officers finally ventured outside, all they found were the unconscious attackers, and no sign of the man. Only the silver key card lay on the ground, catching the sunlight. Chief Warren picked it up, staring at the strange symbol engraved on it. He whispered to himself, "Who are you?" But deep down he already knew. This man was a ghost in the system, a protector hiding in plain sight. By the end of the day, all reports of the attack had vanished from the news. The government denied everything. But for the men in that station, one truth remained clear forever. Sometimes the heroes the world never sees are the ones who save it the most. The city woke to a bright morning, unaware that a silent war had been fought in the dark just hours before. Inside the police station, everything looked normal again. Papers shuffled, phones rang, and life went on as if nothing had happened. But every officer knew that what they had witnessed wasn't normal. It felt like a ghost had passed through their lives, leaving behind only questions. Chief Warren sat alone in his office, staring at a silver keycard resting on his desk. Its surface shimmered under the sunlight, almost alive. He'd tried scanning it, photographing it, even sending a picture to a friend in the tech division, but every attempt failed. The photo would blur, the image would vanish. The man they had arrested, the one called Erebus, had disappeared like smoke, yet his presence still haunted every corner of the station. A knock came on the door. It was Officer Daniel, his face pale but serious. "Sir, you need to see this," he said quietly, handing over a sealed envelope. It had no return address, just the words, "Thank you." Inside was a single folded paper and a photograph. The photo showed Chief Warren, Daniel, and the entire station staff, taken just hours before the raid. None of them remembered posing for it, but standing at the far corner of the picture, half in shadow, was the man they had captured. His eyes were calm, his faint smile almost invisible. The chief's hands trembled slightly. When did he take this?" Daniel shook his head. "We checked the cameras again, sir. Every file resets at 3 a.m., like someone wiped the system clean. And then this envelope appeared on the front desk this morning." Chief Warren leaned back, his heart heavy with awe and confusion. "He's not just an agent," he whispered. "He's something else." Just then the phone rang. The voice on the other end was firm but respectful. "Chief Warren, this is Director Cole again. You and your team did well to stay quiet. Erebus completed his mission, and because of your cooperation, many lives were saved. You'll never see him again, and you'll never hear of him. But know this, your actions last night made a difference." The chief frowned. "Sir, what mission was he on?" The director paused, then said softly, "He was hunting people who wear badges but sell secrets. The attack you faced wasn't random. It was a cover-up. You caught the wrong man, but you also exposed the right ones. The chief's chest tightened. You mean someone inside? Yes, the director replied. And thanks to you, they've been taken care of. But the details are classified. You'll receive commendations soon, but officially nothing happened. When the call ended, Warren sat in silence. The truth was heavy. He realized everything, the arrest, the chaos, had been part of something far beyond their understanding. Erebus hadn't been their enemy. He had been their shield, working in the shadows while the world slept. Later that evening, the chief walked outside as the sun set, painting the sky gold and crimson. On the station steps, he found Daniel staring into the distance. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" Daniel asked. The chief smiled faintly. "Men like him never leave, they just move where they're needed." Suddenly, a faint hum filled the air. A drone hovered above them for a moment, then dropped a small metallic tag at their feet before flying off. On the tag were just 2 words, "Stay ready." The chief picked it up, his heart racing. He looked at the horizon and whispered, "We will." That night, Chief Warren locked the silver keycard in a small box. But before turning off the light, he glanced at his reflection in the window. For a split second, he thought he saw someone standing behind him, tall, calm, with the same steady eyes. When he turned, there was no one there. He smiled faintly, whispering to the empty room, "Thank you, whoever you are." Outside, the wind carried the sounds of the city. Somewhere in the distance, a black car moved quietly through the night. Inside sat the man they had once arrested, his face hidden in shadow. He held a small photo of the police team, and for the first time, he allowed himself a small smile. In his line of work, there are no headlines, no medals, no recognition, but he knew the truth. Sometimes the strongest heroes are the ones the world never sees. As the car vanished into the darkness, the silver keycard on Chief Warren's desk flickered faintly, like it still carried a heartbeat, a silent reminder that the mysterious man they once captured had never truly left.